Are you ready to roll?
Let's do it.
We are ready to roll.
All right, Joe and Scho and Jo. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited that we get to catch up. Um, you two were the epitome of pursuing happiness. And from what I understand, you're still doing that. And I cannot wait to talk about what you've been up to. And I see some announcements you've been making on Instagram. So for those of you who do not follow you on Instagram, what's your Instagram handle so people can follow you?
It is Scho and Jo, so it's SCHO and ANDJO.
Yeah, you've been making some announcements these last
Yeah.
few days here. And if you
Yeah.
want to make any big announcements on the podcast, please do so. It's a great opportunity to do that.
This would be an announcement for sure. Yeah, we just announced in our Sunday summary, our weekly newsletter, that we are pivoting to our next adventure, which is going to be van life. So we just bought a 2023 Mercedes Sprinter van, 170 wheelbase, so the medium-sized van. And
It's completely empty.
completely empty. It's just a shell. So we are going to fit it out and
Film it all.
create, yeah, we're gonna film it all and we're gonna create a little home and then go see the United States by land.
Wow.
Not
This
by
is
boat.
this is a bombshell to start the podcast. That's
Yeah.
incredible, super exciting. Gotta ask you, we are both friends with Adam and Catherine. Were they
Yes.
any kind of an inspiration to you to making this pivot to traveling by van?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah, we van life has been sort of something that we've been interested in for a while. And then we got to see Adam and Catherine's van when they visited us in Maryland back in 2021. And it was just like that's definitely next. So even though we're just
Totally.
announcing it now, we've known that van life is going to be next for years, really. We tried not to let that get in the way of what we were doing, and just enjoy the Great Loop and boating. But yeah, just seeing their van and how much fun they're having touring around, and we got to enjoy their 50th state with them this past year.
Yeah,
So absolutely, the way they take van life is inspiration.
yeah,
Their
definitely.
50th state was Iowa, correct?
Yeah.
Iowa, the
So
corn.
we joined them for riding 500 miles across the state, and it was glorious. It was highs and lows all in 1 week, between having your butt on a bike for 500 miles, which is very painful. And then other times where you're just I just rode 500 miles across an entire state is pretty awesome. So you have these emotional highs and lows, and yeah, and so we're just so grateful to have been able to join them in doing that state with them, as well as having them with us to experience that, just in general, a unique experience, and having them do it with us. That was so cool. Just both ways. It was very, very grateful for the
Yeah,
experience.
that's really cool. Ever since I heard of the rag bride a couple of years ago, I think it's a rag bride, right? I want to make sure I'm pronouncing that
Yeah.
properly. I hear
Yeah.
it all the time now. Now it's a thing where I hear so many people are doing it. It's so popular. Who knows? Maybe it'll pique my interest, and maybe I'll give it a shot one of these days. But yeah, I kind of want to. Let's see if we can kind of pick up where our last one kind of left off, which was, I cannot believe, June of 2022. Nothing has changed since then. Um, so you completed the Great Loop, living on a boat. For those people that don't know what the Great Loop is, can you please just explain that again?
Sure.
Absolutely, yeah. The Great Loop, also known as America's Great Loop, is a boating adventure around the portion of the United States. And basically, it's one giant loop. So you start in one place, you cruise for almost 6,000 miles, and you basically cross your wake, which means you come back to your starting point. And so the route basically travels up the eastern portion of the United States, all the way from Florida up to New York. And there's a protected waterway there called the Intracoastal Waterway. So you're doing protected cruising for almost the majority of the cruising. And then you come into the Erie Canal, and you kind of go up the Hudson into the Erie Canal to kind of start going west. And then you go north again up into Canada, and that's just a beautiful, beautiful area to be on the water.
Yeah, the Great Lakes are absolutely incredible as a cruising ground as a whole.
Yeah, and then all these waterways are connected via various canals and locks, and so you end up basically in Chicago, and so that you can kind of work your way through the Great Lakes, and then through Chicago that connects to the Mississippi River. So you travel all the way down the Mississippi River and then other various rivers as part of the Midwest Rivers section of the loop. You come out in Mobile, Alabama, and you continue on the ICW to Florida. You circle back around, and then that's the loop.
Yeah.
So it takes about a year, and it's completed it kind of in seasons. So you're in the eastern portion of the U.S. in the spring. In the summer, you're in Canada. In the fall, fall and winter, you're kind of in the Midwest rivers.
Yeah, and then Florida is primarily the like winter section.
Yeah.
When was day one and when was the final day?
So we
Yeah.
started on March 2nd.
2022, and that was actually our like reattempt at the loop because Elliot broke his wrist when we first attempted to do the loop, so we had to pivot, which was conveniently named the name of our boat. So we reattempted March of 2022, and then we finished February 9th of 2023.
So
So
almost 11 months. So just over 11 months. Also, all being said and done.
yeah, but it was awesome.
What was your sense of pride when you docked the boat for the final time?
So
That's it. It's a good segue because we actually
yeah.
didn't dock when we finished our loop. We didn't finish by docking, and we finished basically by anchoring in the same place that we had anchored on the way up. And we were laughing to ourselves and just on cloud nine because of the momentous occasion of this is something that we had been working towards for 2 years, but really 1 year of the loop. And the weather was terrible. It was windy. It was choppy.
It was so windy.
And we're anchoring and we're switching our flag. It's like a thing you do when you're doing the loop. You have a gold flag as part of the AGLCA Cruising Association, a white flag. And then once you complete your loop, you have earned the right to display the gold flag. And so we were switching our flags, and it's blowing like, pretty hard. And
there's like nobody there. 2 other people out on the water because it is just blowing. And
then we pop the champagne, and the champagne just sprays all over the boat.
Yeah.
The wind is just going there.
But there's nothing that could wipe the smile off of our face because we were like, we did it. Like we completed it. Like we did this.
And we didn't know that we would.
Starting out. Because there were so many points of wondering whether or not we can actually do this, and so many points that were just really hard and that make you question like what am I doing here? Like what are we doing here? Like we, beginning this whole journey, like we had practically zero boating experience. I mean, it was very, very limited. But we practically knew nothing. And so then like becoming like familiar with how do you work? How does a diesel engine work? How do you do boat things? How do you dock a boat? How do you not drag anchor? All these like questions that you ask yourself or ask Google because you're like, this isn't right. Like, what do I need to do in a thunderstorm on a boat or thunder and lightning storm on a boat? Like all these questions. And so all these moments of like, this is really hard, or like, I'm scared, or I'm nervous, or I'm anxious, led up to this like aha, like we did it moment. And that was pretty awesome.
I got a question for you. Do you sense that your relationship is now better and stronger than it was before because of everything you went through together?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like it's hard to put into words like how this journey has like strengthened the relationship, but I kind of think of it as, well, one, I believe that everything in life, like half of everything in life is just your attitude. And some of that exact lesson I had to learn throughout this journey too. But in addition to that, like this whole journey can either strengthen relationships or make them stronger. And And so it can, well, yeah, it can weaken relationships or it can strengthen relationships. And for us, it helps strengthen relationships or our relationship. And it's kind of interesting because like, I thought we knew how to communicate before this whole boating thing. And then like we were boating and I'm like, no, no, no. Like we have plenty of ways that we can improve upon. And I'm not saying it of like things are perfect by any means, but just like you don't know what you don't know until you don't know it. And like,
Yeah, communication, listening, trust, all those things.
oh, so many things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, it's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Was there a moment during this great loop that your relationship was tested the most that you can kind of think back to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Probably the biggest one. I'll say this because I caused this one, but the biggest, probably the biggest one that comes to mind is we were leaving this dock in North Carolina, and we're still very much learning the ropes, and we're both trying to learn each other's roles, so that way if somebody became incapacitated, the other person could do all the systems. And so basically, Jennifer was trying to learn how to leave the dock, and we're doing all this prep work. We're getting ready to start the day, and then probably about 2 minutes before we actually leave the dock, I say, "Oh, we need to hurry up because I have this other appointment that I need to do in 5 minutes." So like now let's learn like, but also on a it's extreme time crunch. And so Jeff's like, okay, let's do it. So then I proceed to leave out the most important rule about leaving off the dock, which was basically just kind of how to control the boat speed. Because it's very much different than a car. So like the car you can kind of very easily like start and stop and slow down, but the boat there's like a slowest speed that it can go. And so if you're not jockeying in and out of forward and neutral, you're not going to go slower than the slowest speed, which is pretty fast, faster than you want to dock. And so anyway, so it's very highly stressful.
Especially for someone who's learning, who's like, I've never docked the boat before or gotten off the dock. Let me try this for my first time ever. In that situation, it's just a little bit more like, you should just probably go slow.
Yeah,
not like
so a few things come together. It was a little stressful leaving the dock. I had to take over. Choice words were said, and Jennifer told me later that that if or what did you say? Like
basically, so we're in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, and it's on the Alligator River, or no, the Albemarle Sound. It's like the Elizabeth River's off the Albemarle Sound, and it's very brackish. It's brown water. And and I don't do murky water. I don't do like, if it's not clear, I'm not jumping in. But if that water was clear, I would have jumped off that boat and like gone ashore and walked away because I was so mad. I was so frustrated and annoyed. But the only thing that kept me on on that boat was that brown water because I was so ticked off. Yeah, so
that was one of a few circumstances.
Yeah, and then there's others, and I think like by the time that we were like over halfway through, there were certain moments of like things would happen, like a pipe would burst in the engine room, and like, so the temperature's rising on our gauges at our helm station, so we can see like, okay, something's up. We go downstairs and we're addressing like what's the problem, and we're like, and so it's kind of like we can think, I can think to myself, I'm like, we've done a lot harder things. Like, this is fine. Like, we're going to solve this. And so I know like, okay, take a deep breath, get to a safe point, aka just like get out of the channel, like kind of like off the highway, and slowly just address the issues. And so like that was always like, whereas if I was given that situation when like we first left,
it would have been different.
I would have like reacted differently. Yeah. But since we had done much harder things, or we had experienced bigger challenges, like that challenge seemed small to me. So it's all this like, it's like very interesting because from like a bird's eye perspective, like you can see, like the amount of experience and time, the experience that comes with time, and how that affects you and how that affects like how you respond and how you react, and like what you're confident in, like what you can handle and stuff like that. And so, yeah.
Not just that, I'm also thinking like you said you would have, you wouldn't have jumped in the water. It was murky, so you didn't jump in the water, but it's like there's probably so many situations just being in close quarters for a year that it almost forces you to figure it out together because you're not going anywhere. So I can imagine like that probably leads to some tough testing times, but ultimately coming out the better because you have to collaborate and figure it out together, like all these different problems and problem solving. So I imagine like you said, everything now moving forward is like you've dealt with most likely worse than what you're going to deal with, and how much stronger that would make you as a couple. I think that's absolutely wonderful. Would you
Yeah.
do this again?
Yeah, we would do it
Yeah, we would
again.
do it
Uh,
again. I think we would do a
we
few
need a
things
little,
differently,
yeah.
but overall, yes, we would do it again.
And when
Absolutely.
we finished, we were like, we need a break from everything related to the Great Loop because it's an adventure, not a vacation. Every single day, you're finding someplace new to be, you have to worry about the weather, so many unknowns. So it really tests you. It's a test of perseverance. And so at the end, it was like, okay, we loved it. It was an amazing trip, but we need a break from it. And so I think we would do it again for sure
Yeah.
in the future. It was just you got to see so many different things and be exposed to different areas of the country that you would never see otherwise, small towns and the like, and everybody's Great Loop is different. Like you could be going with another boat and they're going to see different things, and since much of it's determined by the weather, whether or not you go to this port or that port is basically where the
Chance.
wind's going
Yeah.
that day. So
That sound,
yeah.
I remember the last time we talked, sounded absolutely exhausting about having to figure out where to dock. If you can't just pull into somebody's driveway and go to a house, you have to dock all the time, depending on all these different variables like weather and wave size and all that. That's fine for like a week, maybe. I can't imagine doing that for a year every night. I'd be like, listen, like I just need like a few days off from docking. We're done. We're staying here
Yeah.
for a few days. So at
Yeah.
least at least with van life, I mean, you're gonna have to probably find campgrounds and places where you can crash or whatever. But I have to imagine there's a sense of relief with van life that you don't have to account for so many variables, right?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And van life is what we presume there's going to be some things are going to be just easier, like getting groceries. Like we're just going to be able to drive to the grocery store.
Yeah, you can actually
That's gonna be
drive
great.
to like the door essentially of the grocery store.
We stayed in the Keys all winter last winter, and or I guess yeah. So right after we finished our loop, and to get to the grocery store, we would have to drop the dinghy, go to the public boat ramp, lock the dinghy, walk a mile and a half, get the groceries, catch. We were actually at a pretty nice area to get groceries. All being said, they had like a free ride share. Ride that back to the boat ramp, load it all back in the dinghy, bring it
Unlock the
back to the
dinghy.
yeah, bring it back to the boat, load up, the Tetris, make sure you didn't buy too much for the boat fridge.
Yeah.
And there was like a
Jeez.
daily activity. It took all day just to get
Yeah.
groceries. So
We basically paired that with like just like a go out to eat and get a beer day because that activity in and of itself was like so exhausting.
same
And
thing with laundry.
yeah, it just
Mm.
took a while. So it's not that we didn't appreciate the experience as a whole. Like it made me appreciate like anytime I have access to like a washer and dryer, I'm like, this is luxury. Or like just like a full shower, I'm like, this is luxury. Or a dishwasher, I'm like, luxury. And so I don't look at
You
these
really need to
things
appreciate the small things.
totally. So I don't look at it the same way, but I am grateful for a little bit of a break.
And obviously, you guys were on land consistently throughout your great loop, but is there any kind of like integration back into life now on land? Did that feel weird at all? Like, where'd you stay? Like, how did you find a place to crash? Like, how'd all that work?
So at the beginning, there was definitely a culture shock being back on land because everything is so much faster. The boat, you kind of get used to moving at 6 miles an hour.
Oh yeah, like getting back into a
7 miles an
car
hour. So
and you get on a highway and you're like, everything is
sensory
going so
overload,
fast.
overload. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, life is passing by.
And then I
Wow.
just we kind of had a little bit of a strange end to boat life. But I remember like we were at Jennifer's grandmother's house and somebody needed something from the store. So I was like, I want to go because I wanted to get in the car and drive the 10 minutes to the grocery store and it just felt it was just nice to do that. And have that access, to all those kind of things. So
Yeah.
at the beginning, it was a little bit of a relief. And since then, we've basically just been living with family. So like all of a lot of our family lives here in like the northeast of Florida. So
We've been hopping from house to house,
yes,
visiting different family members or like going on various trips throughout the year. So seeing Adam and Catherine in Iowa. We went up to Maine for a week. We went to Albania, visited some friends, and then went out to California and Colorado. So we haven't been full-time living with
we've been
family for
catching
like
up on
6 months, but
yeah.
we've just been spending this time catching up on work. So just basically a lot of like what I kind of consider boring, like heads down computer work. It's, what everybody kind of does, or, a lot of people do. And yeah, and so just been like
catching
catching
up on
up.
work and catching up on family.
Yeah.
Seeing people that we weren't able to see for the year that we were looping.
Yeah.
I know we just talked about a moment that tested the both of you. Is there a moment that comes to you when you look back, like such a magical moment or a favorite moment of both of you as well doing the loop?
Favorite moment.
I think I have probably I have three, and I'll try and make them each very quick. One is jumping in the we are in Thousand Islands, so which is like north of New York, like upstate New York. And it's fresh water, it's clear, it's beautiful. And we were on an island in Thousand Island National Park in Canada, and there's a lazy natural river. And so you could jump off this island and like swim out maybe like 10, 15 feet, and the lazy river would take us right back to our boat. And then we'd get on our boat, get back to land, and like circle and do that several times. Phenomenal. It was like adult summer camp. All my like summer camp dreams came true. Two, taking our boat through the Chicago River and having like the skyscrapers on either side, and knowing that we were like not on a tour boat, we're on our boat. And we got ourselves here. So like from like Key West, Florida to Chicago, like we brought our boat here, and now we're experiencing this. And so like that was very surreal. And thirdly, whenever we got once we were finished with the Midwest rivers and we made our way into Mobile Bay, which was like basically the reintroduction to saltwater, there were dolphins, and like having dolphins swim with like at the bow of our boat with us, and having them like crest, and it is just such a cool experience. So
yeah, those were, I mean, there's a few really special days on the loop, and then every other day there's special moments.
Yeah.
And that's the strategy, the challenge is to make sure you find those special moments. But one of the special days that Jennifer mentioned was we had this lock is what it was called. So it was like connecting two waterways. And but this lock was a special lock, and to where we basically drove our boat onto a railway car, like a railroad car, and then it brought our boat out of the water over a road, and then down the other side into another body of water. And so we got to be on top of our boat while that happens, and it's the only one of its kind in the world. And so that was kind of cool, just being able to experience that.
Totally.
That's amazing. Yeah, the only one I can relate to is when you said Chicago. I did the architecture tour in Chicago.
Yeah.
Same thing on a boat. That was awesome. That's something that stuck with me. It's funny because when my buddy and I landed in Chicago, we are asking people like, well, what should we do? What do you recommend? Everyone said the architecture tour on the boat, and you guys did that on your own boat, and it was so cool. So I completely understand what you're saying. Did you pass by Montreal at all?
We didn't, but the loop does go by Montreal. So there are a few different like route options in that area. We chose not to because of timing. But we hope to visit Montreal in the future.
Yeah, it's on our radar personally. That's why I asked you, because in October we went to Banff and we stayed at the Fairmont in Banff, and had just such a magical time. That there was a Fairmont outside of Montreal and Quebec, and we're just like, maybe we do that for Christmas next year. And so I was wondering if you took the boat. It's right off the St. Lawrence River. You can literally see it from the hotel. So I was wondering, maybe that's something we do next year. But next year's going to look a little different with our family
because you guys are
situation.
I
You're
know.
expecting crazy.
10 weeks. I mean, 2.5 months. Like that's
Yeah, 2.5 months. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. So travel, I mean, geez, like I'm so jealous. Like travel is gonna look different for us for sure. Um, I don't know if is family in your radar at all at any point. I don't know if that's a personal
yeah.
question, but
Maybe no, we
Yeah.
in part of this like seeing family period that we've been in, we've had some family members, brothers and sisters that are now parents.
Yeah.
So we've been able to experience the fun aunt and uncle to like the extreme and loved that. We have a
Yeah.
3-year-old nephew that lives in New York, a 3-year-old niece, and a 1-year-old nephew that lives in LA, and then a 2-year-old or
Nephew.
maybe almost 2-year-old nephew that lives in Israel.
oh
So
wow.
we're able to see
We-
them all.
We've been like,
Sorry.
we've been like compiling all this family time together, and it's just been really nice because we haven't had that on the loop.
Hmm.
And so,
They really brighten up the room.
yeah, so it's just been nice. We've been like fun aunt and uncle, and it's been a real treat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way to go. I'm jealous. I mean, I did my fair amount of traveling. I'm super happy with what's to come. I think travel is gonna look a little different now. We're talking about possibly going back to Sedona where we got married and just kind of having like a relaxing few days out there. You know, with a baby that's like 5 or 6 months old. I don't really know exactly what we can do, but it is what it is. And then I'm sure Disney World will be in our future plans at some point.
Yeah.
Nice. I think
But
you want to make it happen. There's so many ways to travel with kids, and
Yeah.
it's great for the kids too. Like they get to, I mean, well, I guess when they're super young, they're not going to know, but when they're a little bit older, like they're going to be able to be exposed
To so
things.
many new
It's gonna
things,
be
yeah.
awesome.
that's important. I really do believe it. Just to expose them to different cultures, different ways of travel, you know, get them on a plane early, stuff like that, you know. So it's definitely important for both of us. And it's something that makes us happy. So we don't want to just give it up, right? I mean, I'm sure we're gonna be tired and we can find a million other things to do, but I know travel is really important to us. So we'll make it work. We'll figure it out. We'll just we'll be those people now with a crying baby on a plane and everyone's looking at. So we'll see how we handle that situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you said what was your last date? Was it last February? Almost a year ago was your last day that you anchored?
Yeah. Almost a year ago. So
Yeah.
February 9th, I think.
A week from, I mean, a month ago, a year ago, plus a month. Yeah, February 9th, January 9th right now. So
Yeah.
Is this your full-time gig now, or are you kind of still trying now that you're docked, you're kind of trying to make ends meet before you head off again?
no, still working on Scho and Jo full time.
Yeah.
We've so what we did while we were looping was we filmed a video of every single day. So we're up to, I think with our Great Loop, we're having 420 videos on YouTube.
Wow.
So
And-
we're basically with how the loop is, we couldn't edit them with the same amount of frequency that we were filming them. So that's what we've been doing for the past 11 months is among other things like selling the boat, which we can talk about later, and catching up like that. We've been just really working on our backlog of content. And then
And out of those 400 and somewhat videos, 215 of those are like Great Loop videos. So that like 215 videos are just a lot to edit as you're looping, because as we learned, looping is a full-time job. It requires a ton of time because of like what you mentioned earlier, like you have to figure out where are you going, where are you getting groceries, what are the wave sizes, where's the wind coming from? Well,
where's the wind coming from in 3 days?
Yeah, is this anchorage going to protect me? Like all of these variables that you have to figure out every single day, or every single day that you move from one place to another, or as the wind changes and the weather, you know, changes, you have to figure out, is this still good for today? Or do I need to move for 2 days from now or whatever?
Yeah.
So it just made
And speaking of families in the loop, there were actually a couple families that we met that were doing the loop.
totally.
So yeah, we met a couple a few, yeah.
Yeah. The couple that you had on your podcast,
The Fire family.
Yeah, on Fire
Mhm.
Family. Yeah, Jennifer, Seth,
Two kids.
yeah, their 2 kids, they like they did it. There's also the Boomershine family, and then I think like 2 or 3 others that we're aware of. I think
Probably
mom.
many more, but yeah.
Yeah, so there are
Map, yeah.
some people who do it with kids, and it does seem like a really unique experience and opportunity as well.
Yeah. And you get to travel with your home, so you leave out some of that dynamic of having to pack and unpack and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And typically, like it's coincides with homeschooling. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious. So we were talking before we started hitting record about the weather today, how just insane it is up the whole East Coast. If you were on a boat on a day like today, what would that look like for you?
It was that's so funny that you say that, because like when we were talking about this, or like a little bit earlier in the conversation, I was like, oh yeah, just like we mentioned, like when we first hopped on the call pre-recording, of like there's tornado watches in our area. You're getting the same kind of maybe
the storm.
the same storm band is hitting you. And so just going up like the like southeast coast, just moving over. And I just thought, like, today would be a day that I'm really happy to not be on a boat. Like,
But as for what we would do, it's kind of a good question, because the new owners of our boat Pivot were actually, like, we talk a lot, and they were asking us, okay, what would you do today, if you were on the boat, just asking for general advice. So we've already thought about this.
Yeah.
But in general, the boat's in a pretty secure location with respect to the wind. So there's not a lot of waves that's going to hit the boat, but definitely still a lot of windage. And basically, it's just batten down the hatches, make sure everything's closed up, make sure everything's tightened, and check on everything a couple times through the storm.
Yeah.
And then you just brew some tea and you kind of chill out. Yeah.
Did you ever, or did you ever want to step off the boat and just treat yourself to like a luxury day at a hotel and just crash in a place?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We really, I mean, multiple days. The problem is there's no luxury hotels near any places.
Well,
we couldn't afford it.
That we couldn't afford. Like if we were in the Keys, they were like way outside of our like budget range. And so it was like, we can't afford like a $500 a night hotel. Like that's just,
below the budget.
That's below our budget. And we're like, in other spots where they're like, it's, you have like motels and like stuff like that. And you're like, I'd just rather stay in my boat and like hang out, because it is your home. So, yeah. So like,
one day we did stop by at a resort in our boat. So that was a nice.
And resort, I would use that term loosely.
Yeah. Loosely.
Yeah. It wasn't like Kentucky. A luxury resort. It was just, it had a pool and like a little like sauna. Yeah. It was nice.
Golf carts. They did have like a massage facility there, but they were booked, so we didn't get to use that. But yeah, it would have been nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious, because I probably would have planned ahead and been like, all right, when we get here, we're stepping off the boat, stay at a hotel. When we get here, I probably could have like wait to get there just to get off and just treat myself to a nice resting day at a hotel. You mentioned selling the boat a couple times. Is there a story with that?
Not a big story, but it was bittersweet. So that was a big part of this past year. So our boat, we used it pretty much since we bought it. We lived aboard, and so we had to pull it out of the water for the first time, and do all the maintenance that we needed to do to get it ready to sell. And the new owners, they're doing the Great Loop too. So it's kind of fun being able to share that, and they're not renaming the boat as of now. So Pivot's gonna stay around for another year, at least, which is kind of cool, because it's a bit of an icon now.
Yeah.
Amongst loopers.
Was it important to you to sell it to somebody that you knew would kind of like take care of it like you did?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it was important. Well, for me, it was really important that like, and there's no way we weren't going to be biased in, who bought the boat, or like limiting by any chance. But I was really hopeful that whoever bought the boat would use the boat and that the boat wouldn't just sit in a boatyard. Because to me, there's just, in the boating world, there's just nothing sadder than either a sunken boat or a boat on a boatyard that's like on the heart and abandoned. And like boats are meant to be in the water, and boats are best when they're used. And knowing the shape that Pivot was in, like she had just finished the loop, so like mechanically she was in really good shape. Like whenever you live on a boat, or wherever you typically like you address things sooner because you're living there. Like you don't just like, oh, it's just a weekend thing, like it'll be fine, but you're living it. So it's like, okay, we need to fix this, or we need to fix this. And so like it was just in a real, the boat was in a really good shape. And so I'm very happy that the boat is going to owners who are eager for adventure. They're eager and excited to learn and to jump in and to like try the unknown. And I feel that, they're not afraid to fail. And so it's just very exciting. And like, I'm just very happy. Yeah.
And they have a great resource with both of you doing what you just did in the same boat you just did it in. Like, how much of a luxury is that? They can't get better than that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about van life. When is this starting?
The question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Ryan.
If you asked us 3 months ago, we would have said November or December. But no, we're planning on starting to build it out in February.
Yeah.
So in about a month, we're gonna be pretty much focused entirely on building it out, and we plan for that to take a few months at least. And then basically whenever we finish that, we'll determine where we go first. And after it's built, that'll be our full-time home for the foreseeable future.
I feel like you're in an advantage.
It's never been close.
You're in the corner of the country, which is a huge advantage for when you start off, because you're just not in the middle, have to go around a bunch of things. I'm curious to know, do you go left or do you go north? Which way are you thinking?
That's a very
positive. That's a very positive way to look at it.
Yeah, and
we always thought about it as being a bit of a disadvantage, because to get to the other side of the country, it's so far. So versus being in a central location,
but
I like the way
I appreciate your perspective. That's very it's very nice. That is the question though. Like, we're not sure. I think so. Going off of kind of like what Adam and Catherine, and speaking with them, we were like, okay, we kind of want to, like, what's an easy state to start van life, to like dive in.
Best ones. Van life ready,
it just,
we can find campsites.
We can acclimate to van life, like daily routine, just like we had daily routines on a boat. Like, how can we just like get into a flow of van life in an easy spot? And they're like, Utah is great. And we're like, okay, Utah sounds awesome. But obviously Utah in the middle of summer might not be the ideal place to be. So it really does depend, like what Elliot said, like when we finish and like what time that is, because by the time that it's summer, we'll want to be up north. We're thinking maybe in fall, we'll want to be in like the Northeast, but it really does depend on when we complete the van build.
All this could change, but right now we're thinking about spending the summer in like the UP and up in Michigan and stuff like that.
Yeah, Wisconsin.
Yeah, and then the fall would be the Northeast, and then come back down the coast slowly until the winter.
Yeah,
I'm trying to connect the dots here, and I'm not quite getting that you're going to go to Alaska. Are you considering that at all?
Absolutely.
Yes, don't worry, we're going to Alaska.
Alaska is year 2. Like,
yes.
Oh, we got multiple years. You didn't say this. You don't even have to tell me 2 months in advance. We're 2 years in advance now.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah. The first year is figuring out.
Reviews.
Yeah, exactly. How could we not want to go to Alaska?
Yeah.
It's like, it's one of the things one of the places we're most excited for. Entire van life. We just know we need to. We're not going to go head first into Alaska. We're going to kind of like learn how to
van life
in a van and how to make sure the van is well maintained and ready, and then all systems are go, and then we'll try to tackle Alaska.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm super excited for you. Is there a place, we'll say year 1, is there a place or places that you're most excited to do van life in?
Alaska.
Yeah, Alaska.
Like I genuinely am very excited for
Um,
Alaska.
quite a few, well,
I
I haven't traveled much in the US, so anything west of the Mississippi River, I've seen almost none of. Like, been out to LA. My sister just moved out to Denver, Colorado, so we were
Nice.
there recently. But besides that, like, I haven't seen much. So all of that is I'm looking forward to that. All the national parks, the state parks, Baja, Mexico, or Baja, California. Very much looking forward to that. Um, and yeah, we want to do some get into biking a little bit more.
Mm.
So like there's a lot of good gravel bike riding, like in the Midwest, like in Nebraska and stuff like that. And then same thing up in the Northeast. So like I don't know, it's just there's a lot.
yeah. I
Jen,
think,
yeah, what about you? What are you looking
yeah,
forward to?
like, so I kind of always think, so Alaska is probably like the place I am most excited about. However, I also feel like you can't, like, Alaska's like this, like, top-notch place in terms of like landscape diversity, just like unique things that you don't get to see in your everyday. So it makes it a little bit more like mind-blowing in a way because it's so like, you know, not on the daily. But
Mhm.
I think for the lower 48, I'm really excited to explore Maine, the Pacific Northwest. So like really interested in Washington. I'm really interested in Colorado and yeah, but I also feel like I'm I don't want like these like really big name places like Washington and Colorado or California, these like places that have all these like really beautiful, diverse, like well-known landscapes to be like the it thing. So I'm also very mindful and very like mentally cautious that like I'm not setting myself up for like, oh, everything, like, oh, I don't want to see anything else because I actually very much want to see like all of the United States. And so I'm
Mhm.
very excited to see like just kind of like the places that we visited in Iowa on Ragbri, these like small little towns and that are known for, cherry pie and like just little things like that. Because I think that's kind of in a way, that's what the Great Loop was. Like, although I mentioned like some of the big things like Thousand Islands or taking your boat down the Chicago River, it's equally the like the small daily things like just seeing the dolphins, or in this case it
Or
might just be
beautiful
the
sunrise, and
right over like some in a state park with like a beautiful lookout or whatever it is. So I am, I'm excited just to see the United States, period. Like, even though that's not as specific, it kind of answers your question, but it's also not the specific that I think that you were like looking.
No, that's fine. I mean, yeah, a lot of people have like a national park or two on their to-do list or this specific
Yeah.
landscape or but no, I completely understand what you're saying because a lot of times it's like the little towns or the moments that you weren't thinking of that become the special ones and the people you
Totally.
meet and stuff like that. I'm
Totally.
curious, are you going to try to map out year one or is it more of a let's just see where this goes type of situation?
I think we want to have a plan. So we will do some sort of map out, but we're gonna leave a lot of cushion because year one is really, to me, it's just about learning about van life. That's gonna be the focus. The destinations too, but mainly like what does it mean to like live in a van? Like just finding our routines and our habits and enjoying that. And
Yeah.
Are
yeah.
you going to try to perhaps like immerse yourself in these places, or is it more of just kind of, we're just going to drive by, see it, and then perhaps just keep moving? Because I imagine with the boat, that's kind of how it was. You kind of had to keep going, but with the van, it's up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be the big challenge, really. It's like how do we decide how long we want to stay in a place? Because I'm sure we're gonna want to stay in places longer and longer, but to see the entire country, I mean, the country is massive. The
Yeah.
states are massive, and there's so many national parks, and there's so many state parks and cool cities and towns. So there's not enough to see in a lifetime,
Mm.
if you're going to see everything thoroughly. So that's going to be something we'll have to figure out. I think we generally like to travel slower. So we like to spend more time in places and see less things. But I bet some days we're just going to be like crossing things off the list. Like, okay, saw that, saw that, saw that, saw that, and now let's find a place to sleep. So it's going to be trying to find a balance.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Can I assume that you'll be documenting this along the way and editing and uploading as you go?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not quite sure our cadence or and how it's going to differ, because our Great Loop videos were all like vlog style and the day in the life. So it'll be different, and I'm excited for that challenge.
Yeah.
But definitely we're still documenting everything, and yeah.
What is a tip from Adam and Catherine that they like highly recommended the most when starting van life?
Ooh.
Yes, quite a few.
What are they? I'm curious. For the people that don't
Well,
know or listening to this, we keep talking about Adam and Catherine. Adam and Catherine have been on the podcast numerous times. The Adventures of A plus K. Awesome people. Go follow them. But yeah,
they're
I'm
very
curious.
awesome. I think like, so they had quite a bit of help from their family, specifically Catherine's dad, on building on their build out. And I think, I don't know if it was specifically them, but we've gotten the recommendation to like very frequently, like go take your van out as you're building it. Like, you know, finish one maybe section or one piece, one something, you know, don't have things just hanging there, but then like go and drive and see if things rattle. So like, that's kind of like a tip
Action.
for
Yeah, I don't.
an actual like van build.
Yeah, and
And then I think, oh, go ahead.
they've said like because like a lot of the things that they like to do, we also like to do, like hiking and backpacking and stuff like that. So they've told us that like a few times, like having schedules out with like this permit and that permit, sometimes that's a little stressful. So they recommended to us to like slow down a little bit, you know, and not have like this big itinerary, because you're gonna find places that you're gonna like a little more.
Yeah.
So
Right now, your dog's is it Ollie? Is your dog's name Ollie?
yes.
Yeah.
Are you traveling with Ollie?
Oh, of
Yeah.
course. That's
Yeah.
it was a big deciding factor for doing the van.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because we definitely, I think whenever we completed the loop, there's a few things that we like knew that we loved about boating and the loop by default, because that's what we were doing with boating. But we loved traveling with our home and we loved traveling with our dog. And those two things we knew that we wanted to incorporate if possible into this next chapter. And so therefore like a van really fit that easily. And yeah, so I think like
We think
just
she's gonna love it. Yeah.
yeah, I think traveling with her in a van will be a little bit of an adjustment, because it's like, you mean, there's no way that you can go from boat to van without a little bit of an adjustment. But I think it's gonna be great, because we're just gonna, I think one thing that we were craving on the boat that we did not get enough of, that we really are hoping to get more of with the van, is more active, just more of an active lifestyle, being more active, getting, I mean, we were outside all the time on the boat, but yeah, and so like we'll just be able to do that with Ollie. And I think, I mean, I think all three of us in a way are excited for that. Just to like go out and do things. Yeah.
Physical activity.
Physical activity. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to hit on something you just said that I didn't really think of until you just said it. You were outside a lot. And I feel that most of America, if not most of the world, is just indoors all the time on screens and, you know, their computers or phones, stuff like that, doing work. What did that mean to you? Did you looking back, like how does that feel to have just been outside in nature a lot, just slowing life down, looking at where you were, just thinking, being mindful? What was that like? And yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to ask here, but it's kind of like, you know, in comparison to everybody that's sitting indoors in their office all day long, like how was life different for you, and how did you value that?
It was,
I
I
think-
mean, yeah, it was just so refreshing, really, being out there and not being kind of tied to a commute or something like that, or, you know.
Well, and there's like the fresh air that you get too. Like you constantly have fresh air. I mean, like we rarely, for budgetary reasons, we anchored over going to a marina and a dock, because it's cheaper that way. And so that meant that a lot of times we would open up our windows, open up our door, our hatches, and
Yeah,
have
our
fresh
door would
air
be open all the
flowing
time.
through the boat at all times, basically. So sometimes, like, well, one, we were probably the most tan that we've ever been in our entire lives because we just got the most sun. My hair was like, had like streaks of blonde in it from
Yeah.
just the sun.
Uh,
So we had that. We also like, so one, just sun exposures, two, fresh air constantly.
and sleep, like our sleep schedule is
Was
revolved
very
around the sun.
right.
So we got a lot of sleep in the winter because you kind of get tired when the sun goes down and wake up when the sun goes up. And we got a lot less sleep in the summer.
Yeah.
And it's just the natural way that
And it
our
felt-
body's accustomed to it.
Yeah, and it felt very natural. Like it felt, yeah, it was, we were very in tune with it.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, also like during winter, it was very cold on the boat because we were trying to avoid marinas. And so like, that's also something, whereas like in a traditional home, you know, you have a thermostat and you adjust your thermostat and it is whatever, you know, it may be 40 degrees outside, but you have it set to 68 degrees inside for the winter or whatever it is. And that's what you're used to. And you dress, you know, based off of your 68-degree temperature. And that doesn't change throughout your day because that's what you have it set to. But throughout, you know, living on the boat, you're used to like the mornings were specifically in like fall and winter are very cold. And then you have, you know, you dress in layers or all these different things that you're very much more in tune and connected to the environment around you, which I think is actually very special. Yeah, and it's something that personally I really enjoyed.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, what about items and the collectibles and clothes and stuff like that? Have you started to pick that back up now that you're on land? And are you going to have to trim down again now that you're going back into a van?
No, we've been pretty good since we got back on land because we know we are actually downsizing again because
the
the van's
van.
going to be we're gonna have less space than the boat.
Yeah.
So we've been very cautious about what we buy, and yeah, we've gone through our storage unit from when we used to live in a condo, and so yeah, it's we're still pretty good on that stuff, pretty as minimalist as we can.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes we get a little like, oh, we're sprawling out, but then we're like, okay, rein it back in, like
Mhm.
minimalist. We need to be minimalist. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've figured out our one way to make coffee in the van. So we're down from 3 ways in the boat. So now we have one coffee style. So that was an important
downside.
downsize, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I love that we're kind of coming full circle with this conversation. Just bringing it kind of like back to where you started when you started to downsize. You left your job, you found out what's important. You were outside just having fresh air all the time. Um, I want to hit on that again. I know we
Yeah.
talked about it a year and a half ago when I had you on, and now we're further down your road in your journey that you left your jobs and you took a chance in yourself and you did boat life and now you're getting ready for van life. Reflect on that, both of you, if you could, your thought process about leaving, taking a leap, believing in yourself, where that's led you to, the things you didn't expect, and how it's affected your happiness.
Yeah. Do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. So I think for me, coming from corporate America, my background's in software engineering. So I used to do that for big companies. And so to me, when I quit, and really it was a sabbatical, and then I quit a year later for good. It was basically a journey into the unknown and kind of just with zero expectations. And what I learned was that there's so much that I didn't know, and so many different ways to live life and experience life. And a lot of these, it's just you go through one door and a bunch of doors open, a few doors closed, but a bunch of doors open. And so that journey, like each time that we've made a big life decision, to travel internationally and to quit our jobs, and then to buy the boat and do the loop, and then to buy the van and now do van life, like these are all things we knew nothing about, you know. We knew nothing about traveling full time before we started doing it. We knew nothing about boating before the Great Loop. And like, it's just how much each one of those things has taught us about ourselves and about what we enjoy in life is just crazy. When we used to live in Atlanta, I didn't know anything about boats. I didn't watch boats on YouTube, didn't know anybody that owned boats or anything like that. And then we were living on a boat. Like there's quite a few life decisions that have to go a certain way to get there. And not that wasn't the goal. That was just part of the journey to kind of find a way to enjoy life and be present, be happy, but also work towards our long-term goals. And yeah, it's just been a windy road basically, but every step has been kind of fun because we're always trying to be present and then look towards to the future.
And Jen, real quick before you answer Elliot, I want to confirm you choosing to do this has been a great decision, correct?
Well, absolutely. I wouldn't go back for anything.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love hearing that because I imagine there's a lot of people that probably follow you, follow me, follow the people that are just waiting to take that step and they're super scared to quit their job because they don't know anything else. And for the consensus, that's what you hear is, people figure it out along the way and they're never been happier. Jen, your turn.
Yeah. So I think I feel very grateful that we did this. And it's really tough because it is that like leap of faith at the beginning into this like uncertainty and this unknown. And it's a risk, right? Like you have a comfortable job or a comfortable path. And taking that risk to do something different is really hard. But as a whole, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There are good days and there are bad days, but you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days in any life direction that you go. It doesn't matter which way, what journey, what path you take, you're going to have highs and lows in any journey.
Mhm.
And so I'm not saying, the reason I say that is just that it's not this like, rainbows and butterflies over here, quitting your job and doing all these things, learning how to boat. Like there are really tough times and there are times that I question, I'm like,
and there are trade-offs,
Yeah. And there are trade-offs. Like we
Yeah.
weren't able to see family as regularly and have this sense of community and various things. However, though, I think that there is tremendous value in one, stepping outside of your comfort zone and trying new things, because I think that leads and opens so many other doors in life that is really hard to quantify and express otherwise. Like, unless you just do it, whatever that is. I kind of think of it, Ryan, as like you taking the leap to start the podcast. And kind of, if you look at it, it's almost like you wouldn't be where you are today
100%.
with a baby on the way, happily married, like,
Points.
and all, if you hadn't started the podcast.
True
Like,
story.
it brought you all, and it's a risk. And like, you have this, like, personally, I have this like fear of failure. So there's this like, and I think everyone has this like dimension that they're like worried or scared or nervous about or whatever it is. But there are so many risks, but you kind of like, you just do it. And then all these doors open. And that I think is really special. And so I think, like, personally, I just think if anyone has something that they're interested or passionate about, or they're curious, whether it's living on a boat, starting a podcast, living in a van, whatever it is, like if you have any, going to grad school for X, Y, and Z, or, moving to a new state across the country, moving abroad for a year, I don't know what it is, but if there's anything inside of you that said or has an interest or passion, this burning desire, I think it is so important to follow that, because I think that leads to so many doors. And there's just this like, I just don't like the like, what if, like, what if you didn't do that? Like, what, or like, like, oh, I would hate to live life and then be like at the end of it and think like, oh yeah, I didn't try that because I was too nervous, or I was afraid of failing at this. But instead of like, I tried and like it didn't work out, and that's fine. And I learned this and this happened. But yeah, and then I think there's just so many lessons that like I would not have learned otherwise. Like I don't think I would have had this genuine appreciation for like the importance of just attitude or communication in a relationship, or how it strengthened us or anything else. Like I think it's just, you gotta, if there's any burning desire, just go and do it. Figure out how to do it and do it, because today is the time. Today, right now is the time to do it. Maybe not this second, but like today. Yeah.
That's a clip for the ages right there. I'm going to clip that and just post that
Okay.
and say, this is what the podcast is about. I absolutely love that. Yeah, it reminds me that I consistently talk to myself as future Ryan. And like, would future Ryan be upset that I didn't do this? What am I going to look back and regret that I didn't take this chance, or whatever it is, no matter how big or small? You're 100% right. Taking a chance on a podcast is taking a chance. It's also taking a chance living on a boat. I think is so quitting a job and all that stuff is it's to a different level. But overall, like when you start to take a chance on yourself, no matter how big or small, you'll see that you'll figure it out along the way. You just got to have like belief in yourself, and a
Yeah.
good support system always helps. It's great to have a partner, but even if you don't have that, you'll still figure it out. Um,
Mm.
it's funny. So this right here, which is behind me, that people listening, you ever heard of the Holstein Manifesto? Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Mm.
I'm going to grab this real quick for people not watching this, listening to this. I know somebody here to read the whole thing, but I saw this. It's decently popular, I guess, but I saw this when I took a trip with my dog, who is now past Coda, and Raven. We took a trip to Asheville. I wanted to just stay in a cabin in the mountains for a couple of days, and I got an Airbnb just up in the mountains. It was absolutely beautiful. And on the wall was this, and I took a picture of it, and I never forgot. And finally, over the last few weeks, I printed it and put it in my office because it's something I want to read consistently. If you don't mind, actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to read this because I think it lines up with everything you just said. So here, I'm going
Yeah.
to show it to you real quick. It says, "This is your life. Do what you love and do it often. If you don't like something, change it. If you don't like your job, quit. If you don't have enough time, stop watching TV. If you are looking for the love of your life, stop. They will be waiting for you when you start doing things that you love. Stop overanalyzing. All the emotions are beautiful." Let's see here. Life is simple. When you eat, appreciate every last bite. Open your mind, arms, and heart to new things and people. We are united in our differences. Ask the next person you see what their passion is and share your inspiring dream with them. Travel often. Getting lost will help you find yourself. Some opportunities only come once. Seize them. Life is about the people you meet and the things you create with them. So go out and start creating. Life is short. Live your dream and share your passion. How freaking awesome is that?
I
That is
love that.
awesome.
I love that.
It just sums it up. It's just one of those things. I read that. I just pulled into some Airbnb and I was like, that was on the wall. I was like, I mean, how does that not speak to you? I mean, that's the
You were
life
meant
of
to see
living,
that. Yeah.
right?
You were meant
Yeah, I feel like you were meant to see that though, because it's like out of all the Airbnbs and out of all places that you could have
Mm.
gone, and it's just like, and how that has stuck with you mentally to now
Mhm.
have it in your office, something that you can see on the daily. Yeah. And yeah, I think it's beautiful.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's what you both are doing. Like I'm reading this, I'm like, well, that's what you do. Well, that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. And to live life like that, man, I just think it's so freaking awesome. Like, 50 years from now, you're going to look back and you're not going to have any regrets. You're not going to say, I wish we did this. I wish we saw this. I wish we went here. You're living the life that you want to live. You took a leap of faith in yourself and you're never going to regret that. That's what this podcast is all about. And, not just that, but you're also inspiring other people to do it too, which is probably, possibly even more valuable to you, knowing that you're affecting so many more people to go do this besides just you two. Do you
Absolutely.
want to just elaborate on that real quick?
Yeah, that was, I guess, making a difference is always one of the things that I wanted to do since I was a young age. And I never knew how that was going to happen. And so I was hoping to just stumble upon it or figure out my true calling in life. And and then when we started doing YouTube, that was something that I was struggling with. Like, okay, like it seems like we're just documenting what we're doing. But I've learned over time, and Jennifer's helped me with this too, is that the purpose of of what we're doing is to get other people out there to do the same thing. It's to get people to say yes when they would have said no, to take that leap of faith and to live life, because we only have one life. And we try to that's basically one of the core parts of our business model. Is we want to share the why you want to do something. And that's kind of our YouTube channel, like just us doing it in our experiences, and the joy and the challenge and the feeling of accomplishment. And then the how, we try to share, like, how much does it cost to do something? That's a big limit for a lot of people. Like, it must cost $1 million to do this trip. It doesn't, not anywhere close. I mean, of course you can spend $1 million on it, but you also don't need to spend anywhere near that. And so trying to break down the barriers for people to say, okay, like, I can't afford it. Well, actually, maybe you can. It's like, oh, I don't have the time. And then, like, trying to figure out how to break down that barrier too, or trying to get to the yes, because too many people live life and don't ever get that chance, just because of their own circumstances, because of health or whatever happens.
Mhm.
And that's a big shame. And so the more people that we can help and get out there, and then for the people that can't get out there too, we hope that they get to be a part of our journey. And that's special to us in a lot of ways as well. So just being a part of the community.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people like that out there that are just, for whatever reason, just can't do it.
Yeah. And I think just like that, you know, sometimes it's like tough because like we're both pretty like reserved and like to ourselves, like people as a whole. And so sometimes sharing like what we're doing kind of seems like a little like strange to us. But I think whenever we do take a step back and we do look at the big picture, being that we are inspiring others to try new things, get out of their comfort zone, and to keep an open mind. Like, just, you don't need to make a decision. You don't need to have an opinion on something. You can just, because if it doesn't affect you, you can just go in and have an open mind. Just give voting a try, or, give this a try, or whatever. And that is valuable. And like seeing that, like seeing people that are hearing from people that like we inspire them to do the loop, or, like they've been boating for 30 years and they're starting the loop next month, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That is really inspiring. And it does bring a lot of joy, because it does make us feel like, okay, we're not just sharing what we're doing, which it is what we're doing, but that there's a greater purpose to it all.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to this podcast when I get like messages or DMs, hey, this was a great episode. I learned this. I loved hearing this. Like, this made me feel better, stuff like that, right? And just that makes it worth like all the while. And I kind of want to go back real quick something, how I said we were talking about like traveling with a baby. I think a piece of advice I'm going to take myself and I kind of want to share with others is just get something on the calendar. Stop overthinking and just get it on the calendar, because I think that's something we're going to be doing here in the next week or two, is literally like buying tickets, book the hotel, get it on the calendar. I have no freaking idea what it's going to look like having a newborn in the house. And I'm sure we're not going to want to get up and go travel, but it's on the calendar. It's already booked and we're going to do it. And we're going to have a great time doing it. It's just one of those things where don't overthink it. Just mark it down, book something, buy the tickets, stop overthinking it, just get it done. And when the day comes, you'll have a good time.
I think that's a great strategy. And I think,
and I think because that breaks down the analysis paralysis barrier that I believe a lot of people
wind.
Yeah, sorry, that a lot of people have. And you just break it down into like, I'm not going to worry about the problems that we're going to be, or the challenges that we are going to be experiencing 6 months from now. I am just going to focus on like, I know that this will be good for us. It'll be hard. And at times we're going to be like, oh, why do we do this? But overall, you're going to have a great time. So like, you're making it easier for yourself later. Like, it's so smart. That is such a good tip for people.
I appreciate that. Yeah, you'll just always find a reason not to do something. So just paying the money or whatever it is to kind of mark your place, buying the ticket, whatever is almost a guarantee that you'll show up and you'll be there. And 99% chance guarantee that you will not regret doing that.
I think I'm going to take your advice because one of my goals this year is to do an Ironman.
Oh, snap.
That way I have it on the calendar and I don't,
second guess, question yourself,
or wonder how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Anything like that.
There you go. Yeah. Cause my wife obviously, pregnant right now, but I know she loves to run. She's always been a runner. And, we were talking December 31st, what are your goals for 2024? What do you want to do? And I just kept telling her, I was like, listen, like, I don't want you thinking I should have done this, or I miss doing these things. Cause I heard her say that before, like I miss doing these races and stuff like that. And I was like, well, you know what? Just sign up for a race in the summer or the fall, whenever it is. Give yourself time to recover and start training again. Just sign up, just do it.
Yeah.
And that way something's on the calendar and you have a goal to achieve that, not too far in the future, but in the future. And I know you can do it. So I'm pushing her to do the same. I think it's going to be an incredible 2024. And the Ironman, that's no joke. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Big goal.
Yeah. That's awesome though, I mean, that says so much, Ryan, about your character and how much you love her, just like that you want her to achieve her goals, that you want her to do things that, fulfill like, the individual desires and like goals that we have, like our hobbies or interests and whatnot, to pursue those passions, to pursue those interests and do it. Like, whatever. And so it's like, in a way it's saying like, whatever this requires on my end as a husband and a father, I'm happy to help and support you. So that way you can achieve your goals. So that just says tremendous, just
about your character. And
yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah. There's something I've learned over these last few years of doing this podcast, having conversations with so many people, is that how important it is to fill your own cup before you start helping others. And I noticed that like when she's able to do things she's passionate about, or she comes home from something and she's so proud of herself, like how awesome that is, not just for her, but for me and for like everybody around her. It emits positivity, and emits her wanting to kind of do it again. And I'm in full support of that. Yeah, I absolutely love that. I love watching her achieve the things that she wants to achieve. It inspires me. So yeah, any way I can support that. But I kind of want to echo that again, is like fill your own cup before you start trying to help people fill theirs, because your cup becomes very empty pretty quickly when you're just running on fumes and you're not doing things that you're passionate about. So it kind of sounds backwards, but it's actually very much the truth. So,
it's just like in an airplane, you got to put on your oxygen mask before you put on other people's.
Yeah.
Right. That's exactly what it is. Well, I'll tell you what, I think that's an awesome place to wrap up. I think there's just so much to look forward to for you both. I mean, you've given so many reasons for people to follow you. Please give them the locations to follow you.
Sure.
So we're at Scho and Jo pretty much everywhere. I would say we're primarily on YouTube, but check out our website because that's what we're really working on. We have our email list there. So you can see what's going on.
Yeah. And our Instagram, hopefully will be caught up by the time that our YouTube is caught up. So we are working hard to like finish our
plans.
Our Great Loop boating content and are
excited
journey. And are very excited for what 2024 has in store for it.
Awesome. I'm excited for you both. Everything you just said will be in the show notes. So scroll down, go ahead and click on it, follow you guys. It's so worth it. And it's really cool that you're making a pivot to a new chapter in life. This is a great time to come on the podcast to talk about that in between, your adventures and everything. So I know, trust me, I've been seeing your stories and reels and all that stuff. You have a following. These people want to know what you're doing. So I'm glad we got to sit down and have a conversation. You got to talk about it. And I tell you what, let's get you back on the calendar when you're on the road. I want to hear more about your travels, how van life is going, the places that you're seeing, and talk more
That
about your
sounds
future. And in Alaska, oh man, I'm so jealous. Alaska's awesome. So
Maybe we'll bring the van up to Durham.
oh yeah, you're welcome.
uh,
Adam,
Uh,
Catherine did that on the way up and the way down. We had a great time. I love meeting them. I would love to have you guys here in person. You're welcome to crash in the house, do it, use whatever you need, and we can take you out. We'll have a good time here. So yeah, come on by for sure.
Sweet. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us
Awesome.
on.
Thank you, Ryan.
Absolutely. Anytime.